Hello everybody, welcome back to another not Unreal Engine. Welcome back to another Godot learning live stream where we're going ahead and learning the Godot game engine from scratch. Trying to figure out how to use it because I want to make more 2D games and 2D kind of game design prototypes and stuff like that. And I feel like Godot is an interesting path forward, especially with all the new kind of hype around it and all the documentation around it, and Brackeys is back with it. And so we're continuing our learning journey. We're going to go ahead and finish up, hopefully, our first 2D game. So I'm going to just drop that into our chat here. Give me just a second. And we'll go ahead and get started. Hopefully, because every time I open up Streamlabs, I'm having to, kind of reset everything up. And that seems kind of annoying. So I gotta drop a link in our chat, but I gotta first do a verification code and everything like that, because that's how it is. Okay, submit. Maybe we'll be Gucci. Okay. So that's the documentation we're following, everything we're gonna move forward with. We could possibly re-add the source. I forget where the source is. I guess I could do sorry, I gotta add the source again. Guess, I don't know, should I do window capture or I'll do a display capture. So info monitor. That one, awesome. Whoops. Put that in the corner. Probably you guys won't be able to read too much of that, if at all, any of it. But at the very least, there'll be something there, so you'll know what I'm kind of reading. So yeah, the last time we were here, we kind of left off. We have the game more or less functional. We're able to move around. We have gamepad support. We have enemies on screen. We can move around with gamepad. And we can get destroyed. But the game doesn't end. There's no HUD or anything. So that's where the tutorial continues here. So it's heads-up display. So the final piece of our game is a user interface to display things like score, game over message, and restart button. So I gotta create a new scene. So just kind of doing here, new scene, boom, boom. Other node, and add a canvas layer. Okay. Other node, canvas layer. Name it HUD. Okay, HUD stands for heads-up display, an informational display that appears as an overlay on top of the game view. The canvas layer node lets us draw our UI elements on a layer above the rest of the game so that the information it displays isn't covered up by any game elements like the player or mobs. The HUD needs to display the following information: the score, changed by a score timer, a message such as game over or get ready, a start button to begin the game, and then the basic node for the UI elements is control. What is it? The basic node for UI elements is control. To create our UI, we'll need two types of control nodes, label and button. So we need to create a couple of children here. I'll save the HUD thing here. Let's go ahead and go to our 2D. Let's go back to HUD. Like that. So we need to create a label. So add child, label. So the control, this is what they were talking about earlier. So we got label, we'll call it score label. Another child, label. It's nice that it remembers where you were previously looking at too. Message. And then a button and a timer. Button they're gonna name start button. And then timer, message timer. Sorry, timer. Message timer. Boom. So click on the score label and type a number into the text field in the expector. So 5. So it definitely looks weird and blurry. So I wonder if they're going to be addressing that in the tutorial in any way. So the default font for control node is smaller and doesn't scale well. There is a font file included in the game assets called Exolium regular 2TF. To use this font, do the following. So theme overrides, fonts. So I gotta do choose load. So Exolium, boom. Okay. The font size is too small. To increase it to 64 under theme overrides, font sizes. Like that. Okay. That's good. Once you've done this with the score label, repeat the changes for the message and start buttons. Can I do multiple at the same time? Theme overrides, font sizes, fonts, empty, load, Exolium, I said 64. I'll type in start. Okay. So anchors, control nodes have a position and size, but they also have anchors. So this is similar to UMG in Unreal because they have anchor points and everything like that. So it's good that that kind of sets it up. So control nodes are basically like a canvas panel. At least that's how I'm gonna put it in my mind. So control nodes have a position and size. So if I do score label, so there's horizontal alignments and stuff like that. Control, yeah, here's layout, direction, inherited, transform, anchor presets, the top left. So arrange the nodes as shown below. You can drag the nodes to place them manually, or for more precise placement, use anchor presets. So are these presets? Yes. So that's the preset. Start is what? Bottom? Seems like it has an offset, but we'll figure that out in a second. And then message, dodge the creeps. Label settings, auto wrap, I guess on? No, not word arbitrary. No, word smart. So off, dodge the creeps. So I guess they do something like this. Horizontal alignment center. I mean, if I do something like this, like dodge the creeps. I don't know if I should be putting the manual line break in there, or if I should just do like that. So dodge the creeps, arbitrary, word smart. All right, so none of them really do the trick for us. So something along the lines of like that. And then we should have the anchor point like in the center, and boom. So that looks more or less like what we need. I guess I'll change this to a 0 just to match that a little bit better. Can you bind text to like some other kind of file? I wonder. Maybe you can like read from like a data table or something like that. Not sure. We'll kind of just have to learn that along the way. Give me just a second here. Okay. So where do we start? I forgot you guys could see where I'm looking. I gotta get off Facebook and stuff like that. So we got that. So for label, add the text 0. We did set the horizontal alignment and vertical alignment to center. Okay, choose the anchor preset, center top. So I'm guessing center top, we did that, great. So message, add the text, dodge the creeps. So maybe will show me how to properly have it wrap. So add the dodge creep, set both vertical and horizontal to center. Set the auto wrap mode to word. Okay, now it does look. Under the control layout transform, set size X to 48. So under control, layout. This node doesn't have a control parent. Interesting. Set size X, so transform, right? To 480. Choose the anchor preset, center. Boom. So it's like directly in the center. So next, start button, add the text start like we did. Under control, layout, transform. It's gonna be 200 by 100. Choose preset, center bottom. Under control layout, transform, set position Y to 580. Cool. So now under the message timer, set the wait time to 2 seconds and set the one-shot property to on. Message timer, one shot, 2 seconds. Now add this script to HUD. Attach script, should be fine. Extends canvas layer, and then signal, start game, whoops. We now want to display a message temporarily, such as get ready. So we add the following code. So we're gonna make a function, func, show message. It's gonna take in a text parameter here. And then we're gonna say $ message dot text equals text. $ message dot show message up, and then $ message timer dot start. Okay. We also need to process what happens when the player loses. The code below will show game over for 2 seconds and then return to the tile screen end. After a brief pause, show the start button. Okay, so we gotta do func underscore show underscore game underscore over. Then we could do show message. So it's nice that we have the callback to that show message. Game over. Await. I guess that's like delay. Maybe. So await. Message timer dot timeout. The message dot text equals dodge the creeps. Message dot show. Await. Get tree dot create timer. Start button dot show. Okay. Kind of makes sense. I wonder why there's a message timer, but then we create a separate timer to show like the dodge the creeps thing. Can I not like I'm not sure. maybe they'll explain. I could be jumping ahead, you know. So this function is called when the player loses. It will show game over for 2 seconds, then return to the title screen, and after a brief pause, show the start button. When you need to pause for a brief time, an alternative to using a timer node is to use the scene trees create timer function. This can be very useful to add delays, such as in the above code, where we want to wait some time before showing the start button. Okay, so you can do a mix. So I don't know if you need to, like, I guess it's saying you need to wait an arbitrary amount of time, then it's okay to do it, versus other times, I suppose. So I guess it's really up to the developer to choose if they want it to be something that exists in the scene or not, which I guess is okay. You gotta just kind of think about that. Add the code below to HUD to update the score. So func update score. Let's get to get score. And then yeah, we gotta convert that. So score label text equals str score. Connect the press signal of the start button and the timeout signal of message timer and add the following code to the new functions. So we want to do, okay, so the press signal, the start button. Connect, and then timeout of that. That all makes sense so far. So we'll do start button dot hide start game dot emit, and then this one we just do message dot hide, and that's it. Okay, seems straightforward enough. Now connecting HUD to main. Now that we're done creating the HUD scene, go back to the main. So main. So here's main. Instance the HUD scene in main like you did the player scene. So main, no, sorry, that's main. HUD. No, HUD scene. Boom. So HUD is at the bottom. We have that player, all that stuff is in there. Now we need to connect the HUD functionality to our main script. This requires a few additions to the main scene. Node tab, connect the HUD start game signal to new game. So we go HUD start game to main. Wait, so in the node tab, connect the HUD start game signal to the new game. So we gotta remove this. We gotta connect it to something that already exists. No, I didn't want to delete the node HUD. So new game? Yes. So that's really nice if that kind of goes like that. So start game goes into new game in the main script. Pick the thing. We just said that below. Receiver message in the window. Verify that the green connection now appears next to the text func new game. We do, and it is that all good. Great. In new game, update the score display and show the get ready message. So $HUD dot update score, and then HUD. Show message. Get ready. And I'm guessing on timer timeout. Do something like this. On start timer timeout. There should be like on lose, right? Game over. Yes, there has to be something like that. $sign HUD dot show game over. Okay, let's see if I got that right with what I'm saying here. So in game over, we need to call the corresponding HUD function, which I just did. Finally, add this to on-scroll timeout to keep display. Okay, so I did all that prematurely without knowing. You know, I'm just that smart, you know. I'm just that good. Remember to remove the call to new game from ready. I guess I have to say pass, right? Now you're ready to play. Click the play project button. You'll be asked to select the main scene, choose main. Okay. So we gotta do equals. So that kind of hard crashed, but it's whatever. So start. Okay, fun enough, I suppose. How do I make sure that my player's hidden, I guess? Is it in the player scene or script? Aha, hide. So that works, great. So removing old creeps. If you play until game over and then start a new game right away, the creeps from the previous game may still be on the screen. It would be better if they all disappeared at the start of a new game. We just need a way to tell all the mobs to remove themselves. We can do this with the group feature. Let's see if I can reproduce what they're talking about. So I see, okay, because they're still moving and everything. They don't really pause. Okay. So in the mob scene, select the root node and click the node tab next to the inspector. The same place where you find the node signals. Next to signals, click groups. Okay. And you could type a new group name and click add. So let's see, mobs. Okay. Now all the mobs will be in the mobs group. We can add them to the following line to the new game function in main. Okay. So in new game. So get tree dot call group mobs. This is tricky only because there's no like kind of detection here about that function name. It takes in the method by a string name. So I guess you kind of have to know what you'll be doing if you want to do that correctly. But I mean, that's fair enough, you know. So the call group function calls the name function on every node in a group. Okay, in this case, we're telling every mob to delete itself. The game's mostly done at this point. In the next and last part, we'll polish it a bit by adding a background, looping music, and some keyboard shortcuts. Okay, great. So let's see if we can see if we fix the problem. So we're moving around. We're doing, oh, and I lost. And yes, they deleted themselves. And I guess you can move while you're in the start. No, like get ready. It's like letting you move. I think that's fine. Okay. So we can go into the next. Okay. So finishing up. Ow. So we have now completed all the functionality for our game. Below are some remaining steps to add a bit more juice to improve the game experience. Feel free to expand the gameplay with your own ideas. So background. The default gray background is not very appealing, so let's change its color. One way to do this is to use a color rect node. Make it the first node under the main, so they'll be drawn behind the other nodes. So yeah, I guess this is, it makes sense that like bottom is drawn first and then it draws up to the top. So they said a child node color rect. I'll call it background, right? So background. Change its positioning. So make it the first node, blah, blah, blah. So it only has one property color. Choose a color you like and select layout, anchor preset. So let's change this to, I mean, I think that's fine. And then they have anchor preset. I guess this one, full rect. Bam. What did they choose? Oh, they chose a very similar color as me. Cool, good to know. You can also add a background image if you have one by using a texture rect node instead. Okay. So sound effects, sound and music could be the single most effective way to add appeal to the game experience. In your game's art folder, you have two sound files, house and a forest loop.ogg. Yes. And gameover.wave for when the player loses. Add two audio stream player nodes as children of main. Okay. What was the name of it? Audio stream player. So one's called music. Can I do duplicate like that? Great. The other one's called death sound. I gotta take a quick bathroom break. I'll be right back. Yeah, fine. All right, everybody. Sorry about that. I was going number 2. Took longer than I expected. So we're back. So we're adding music and we're adding the death sound here. So we added the 2 nodes here to our main scene. And we just got to go to the respective properties and add that file. So is it under the stream property? Load art. This is the music. So this is the looping one. And then death sound. Load art. Game over. So we gotta make sure that the death sound doesn't play automatically, and we gotta make sure that the music one does and it loops properly. So all audio is automatically imported with the loop setting disabled. That's good to know. So loop. So autoplay is on. I don't see a loop. If you want the music to loop seamlessly, click on the stream file arrow, make unique, then click on the stream file and check the loop box. Okay, and you can do loop offset. Time in seconds at which the stream starts after being looped. Okay, that's interesting. Blah blah blah. So to play the music, add $music.play in the new game function, and music.stop in the game over function. Finally add that sound.play into the game over function. So we have HUD. Let's go to the script. So under start game or new game, did I say? So music dot play, and then game over. Music dot stop, and then death sound dot play. Okay. So let's test what this sounds like. Okay, so there is music playing. Okay, music works. Keyboard shortcut. Since the game is played with keyboard controls, it would be convenient if we could also start the game by pressing a key on the keyboard. Maybe this is where we can add like the button on the gamepad as well. We can do this with the shortcut property of the button node. In a previous lesson, we created 4 input actions to move the character. We will create a similar input action to map to the start button. So we go to project settings, input map. In the same way you create the movement input actions, create a new input action called start game. Just like that. Now would be a good time to add controller support if you have one available. Attach or pair your control. Okay, so it's telling me to do controller support, so that's all right. Good that we already did that. So in the HUD scene, select the start button. So HUD scene, start button, and then is it node or find its shortcut property in the inspector. Shortcut, empty. We got load. Create a new shortcut resource by clicking within the box, opening the events array. So new shortcut, events, add element. create a new input event. Action. And then action. I mean, was that right? So start game is a press not so on the big bye. So I'll say pressed. See if that works. Yay, it does. Well, you know, we're playing with a controller. So we're reviving. Okay. When we lose, start over again. Okay. Awesome. Now when the start button appears, you can either click it or press enter to start the game. And with that, you complete your first 2D game in Godot. Awesome. So you got to make a player-controlled character and these that spawn randomly around the game board. Count the score, implement a game over and replay, user interface sounds, and more. Congratulations. So there's still much to learn, but you could take a moment to appreciate what you've achieved, and when you're ready, you can move on to your first 3D game. I don't know if I should bother learning how to make a 3D game, if I'm not going to really do anything with it just yet. But I think that's a good place to end. Not for the stream. I might want to watch a little bit of the Brackies thing. So we're going to stop listening to that. So Brackies, Godot. So how to program in Godot in 1 hour. And then there's how to make a video game, Godot beginner tutorial. So this one was a month ago. So maybe we can watch this one first and kind of just watch it and learn it.
Godot. Godot. Whichever you prefer, if you want to use it to make a game, you've come to the right place. I've been making video games for more than 14 years now, and recently I've fallen in love with Godot. Godot is a great choice for many developers, and pretty beginner friendly. Also, it's open source and completely free to use. Now you probably have a bunch of ideas of games that would be cool to make, but no matter if you're dreaming of making an FPS, a 2D platformer, or anything in between using Godot, the first step is of course to install it. Now this process might be a bit tedious, but bear with me now. We go to
okay, so we'll skip that.
Create a separate folder for first and press new. Name our project, say first game. I'm gonna place mine on my desktop under my games folder. Let's create a separate folder for first game, so hit create folder and create an edit. And here we are, a clean slate, a blank canvas. Oh, I am so ready to make this game about... Well, this might be a good time to decide what our game will be about. But first, this video is sponsored. What's really cool about Zenva is how to in the spirit of learning the basics of the engine and giving you an overview of how you can start using it to make things, I've put together the most basic game I could imagine. Think of it like food without salt. It doesn't have much flavor, but it does have a player, enemies, moving platforms, collectible coins, and most importantly, it should get you familiar with the engine in no time. Also, we'll be working in 2D, but another really cool thing about Godot is that it's very easy to transfer 2D concepts to 3D. So don't worry, if your dream game is in 3D, most of what you learn here is going to directly apply. As for programming, Godot uses its own scripting language called GDScript. It's pretty fast and easy to use, but still quite powerful. We'll do a bit of programming in this video to get you
okay, so this should be a good tutorial for wanting to learn what I want to learn
and to quickly get a game up
for the project that I would maybe want to try to make. So let's see.
Feel free to write after me or just lean back and observe. Our next video will be about learning to program in GDScript. Alright, I promised you food without salt, so let's get cooking. Now to make our delicious game, we need ingredients. We need things like sprites, models, textures, and sounds. These are called assets. And
Okay, we know assets.
Not for creating these from scratch, but more for putting everything together. It's really the stirring part of making a game. Now, since I can't expect you to go shopping for assets at your local supermarket, I've used a bit of TV magic to prepare some beforehand. You can download them for free using the link below.
Okay, so we get the asset here. There's also a Zenva's free Godot course. Okay. Definitely want to get this one for free while we're looking at some stuff. So sign up with email. Okay. Let me do this on a separate monitor. Okay. Okay, so we have an account with that thing now, so let's click it again. Yes. So I could start the course, so I'm definitely going to start that. So maybe we'll watch this tutorial, and then we'll do that course, and then we'll watch the other Brackeys tutorial, and then maybe we can get started. I don't want to kind of tutorial dump too much on myself and for you guys to watch. I don't know how interesting that will be. But we gotta learn. So hopefully there won't be too many redundant stuff. So let's keep watching. So link in the description. So get the assets. Okay. Oops. So download now. Can I say 0? Yeah, no thanks. Just take it and download it. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, Brackeys, I'm taking it for free. Okay.
I've bundled together sprites from the amazing.
So I gotta make a new
Studios
project,
and
right?
modified them a bit, along with a pixel font, some custom sounds, and a cute little music track. It's also perfectly fine to use other assets you find on the internet. There are many great resources for free assets, just make sure you check the license and give proper credit to the author. CC0 means that the asset is completely free to use and there's no requirement to credit. That being said, making your own assets is one of the places where you can really get creative, and I highly recommend you try it out as soon as you feel comfortable. Remember, you can always use these assets as placeholders and then modify or replace them later. Alright, let's get our assets into Godot.
Okay, so we got to create our project. I don't know what he's gonna name the project either. Godot, sample projects, select current folder.
Importing
No, let's see what he.
is extremely simple.
So first game. So we'll call it, first game underscore Brackeys. Folder, boom. Forward, I guess. Advanced, so mobile compatibility. I guess forward plus. Create and edit. There we go. There's our project. So then also we had the dodge the creep stuff. WinRAR, extract. Then we can go to C drive, Godot, sample projects, first game, Brackeys. Okay. Now they should be here. Yes, Brackey platformer assets. Boom, we're in. Great.
The file system window is where we have all the files we use in our game. By default, the only thing in here is the Godot icon. So let's create a folder where we can put our assets. Let's right click, new folder, and name it assets. Let's also make one for scripts and scenes that we can use later. Now we can simply drag and drop our assets into the asset folder. So I'll
Okay,
select the assets
scripts,
folder, open up my assets here. I'm going to select all the
scenes.
subfolders and click and drag them into Godot. And voila! We can now see and use all of our assets in Godot. So now we're ready to make our game. So let's talk about how
there
we
we
do
go.
that. To make anything in Godot, we use nodes. If we want to make a player character, we do so by putting together a bunch of nodes. If we want to make an enemy,
So yeah, again, it reminds me of components in Unreal.
we do so by putting together nodes. If we want to make a main menu, you guessed it, we use nodes. So nodes are the fundamental building blocks of your game. And nodes come in many types. Some display an image, others play a sound or add physics. And we can even extend existing nodes to build more powerful ones. So in its essence, making a game in Godot is combining and extending nodes to get the result we're looking for. It's a super creative and fun process. But building everything in one big world with nodes for the player, enemies, UI, and a bunch of levels all in one place would quickly become completely unmanageable and confusing. Instead, we use scenes. Scenes allow us to bundle together nodes into reusable packages. A scene can be a character.
So scenes also remind me just blueprints or something like that.
As a single collectible coin or an entire level. Scenes make it really easy to focus on building one part of our game at a time, and then slowly combining them to make our game larger and larger. This is because we can put scenes inside of other scenes, which is called nesting, and allows us to take, say, a player scene, a platform scene, and a collectible coin scene, and put them all inside of another scene, say a level 1 scene. And even cooler, since scenes are reusable, we can make a scene only once and then use it all over our game.
So instancing is what they said. Yeah.
That all use the same collectible coin.
Makes sense.
And if we want to change something about our coin, we simply edit the scene and it automatically updates everywhere else. As you can see, all the nodes and scenes in our game start to resemble a tree-like structure. And that's exactly what we call it, the scene tree. And fittingly, we call the node at the very beginning of the tree
The trunk?
the root.
Okay, the root.
So
Why did I think it was going to be the trunk?
Let's start by making the most essential part of our game,
Okay.
the player character.
Sure.
Player 1.0. So let's create a scene where we'll put everything together. This is going to be a 2D game, so I'll select 2D scene. And let's rename this from node 2D to game. And even though it's empty, let's go ahead and save it. So hit
Game.
Control S,
Ba-ba-bum.
go under scenes, and let's save it here. And now we can actually play our game. It's not going to be very exciting, but let's try it out. So let's hit play up here or simply press F5. It's going to tell us that we haven't selected a main scene. We need to
That's our game, baby. Very
I'm
nice.
just gonna press select current, and you can see that our game scene becomes blue to let us know that this is now our main scene. And as you can see, not much is happening here. So let's stop playing by hitting the stop icon here or pressing F8. And let's put in a player to make it more exciting. So first off, let's create a new scene by hitting the plus sign up here. And
New
this will be
scene.
our player scene.
Okay.
The root node for our player is going to be what is called a character body 2D. So let's add a new node by pressing the plus here or hitting Control A.
Oh.
And let's search for character body 2D. As you can see, this is a 2D physics body that is specialized for characters moved by script. So it's perfect for a player character that we want to be able to collide
So,
with. the
player.
environment.
Boom.
Let's hit create. And now we can see our node here, but we can't actually see our player in the scene. So let's add some graphics. Let's add another node. I'm going to hit Control A. And let's search for sprite. And as you can see, we can choose a single sprite, or in our case, we
Okay,
want to create
sprite.
an animated character. So let's
So
choose
animated
sprite 2D. Sprites are just what we call images in our 2D world. Now, with this node selected, we can use the inspector here on the right to change properties on that node. If we select a different node, say our character body 2D, we can now see the properties on that node instead. So our inspector allows us to change things about a node.
So there's motion
In our
mode, so we
animated
can do
sprite,
grounded or
we want
floating.
to add
Makes
some
sense.
animations. And we want to give it some sprite frames, the individual frames that will make up our animation. Let's click here and add a new sprite frames. And now with this selected, we can see that it will open up the sprite frames window at the bottom. And in this window, we're going to press this tiny icon here that lets us add frames from a sprite sheet. So let's click that, go into our assets, under our sprites, and let's find our knight.png. And as you can see, I've gone ahead and packed all the different sprite frames of the knight's animation into a single image. This is called a sprite sheet. It's a very efficient way of working with lots of sprites, such as when doing animation. Otherwise, we would have to create an image for each single frame, which would quickly become an unmanageable amount of files.
All right, hold on, I'm lost. Okay, so add frames right there. Coin, fruit, I guess night.
Icon here that lets us add frames from a sprite sheet. So let's click that, go into our assets, under our sprites, let's find our night.png. And as you can see, I've gone ahead and packed all the different sprite frames of the night's animation into a single image. This is called a sprite sheet. It's a very efficient way of working with lots of sprites, such as when doing animation. Otherwise, we would have to create an image for each single frame, which would quickly become an unmanageable amount of files. Now to start adding these frames in, we first need to configure the grid here. Currently it's set to 4 by 4. Let's go ahead and increase this. I've created an 8 by 8 grid here. And as you can see, each frame now has its own grid cell. And let's just start by adding the idle animation. To do this, we simply click the frames in the order that we would like. So I'm going to go from the left-hand side here and click. As you can see, it says this to 0, the first frame. Then I'm going to click the next one and the next one and the next one. And now it goes from 0 to 3 and we'll play from left to right. We can always click again to remove. And this is how you can quickly play an animation from different parts of your sprite sheet. So I'll select these 4 frames and hit add frames. Now let's hit F to center our character on the screen. And I'm going to use the scroll wheel to zoom in. We can also click and drag with the middle mouse button to pan. Now our character looks weirdly blurry. That's because we're working with pixel art, which requires really hard edges. By default, Godot is going to try to do some texture smoothing to make textures look better, but applied to pixel art, that is definitely not the case. So let's simply disable this. So let's go to Project, Project Settings. Let's go under Rendering to Textures. And here on the default texture filter, let's change this from linear to nearest, which will immediately make our pixel art look crisp. Then we can select our animated sprite. And let's try playing the animation. That looks great. I'm going to increase the FPS here to 10 to make it go a bit faster.
Hold on.
I'm also going to
Hold on. Okay, here we go. So he increases it to 10. Nice.
rename the animation here to idle. I'm going to enable autoplay to make sure it plays
that's idle.
when we start the game. And finally, I'm going to take the sprite here.
What? Where does he do autoplay?
Enable autoplay to make sure it plays right when we start the game. And finally, I'm going to take the sprite here and move it up to make it kind of stand on this line. And that's it for our graphics for now. We'll add more animations later. But as you can see, we're currently getting this warning here in the scene view. And if I hover over it, it's going to say that this node has no shape, so it can't collide or interact with other objects. And this is because...
Okay, so are we gonna give it...
And whenever we're
like a box? Physics, I guess box closure makes sense.
Shape that the physics engine can work with.
Let's see.
So let's add a new node. I'm going to press the plus sign here. I'm going to search for collision shape 2D, hit create. And here in the inspector, we can now define a new shape. I'm going to add a circle shape. I'm going to make this a bit smaller and drag it up. Somewhere around there looks fine. Now you're probably thinking, well, this is pretty far from our actual graphics, but that's totally fine. Colliders rarely need to be very precise, and it's a good rule of thumb to make them a bit smaller than the...
So it says circle shape 2D. So what's his radius?
Graphics if you need to. Having colliders that are too large is simply going to be frustrating when playing. So let's now rename the top node here to player. And let's save the scene, Control S, as player, hit save. And now we can go into...
Hold on. Maybe 7 is good. That looks reasonable, no? Let's see.
Our game scene and simply drag our player in here. So I'm going to go to the top here, and drag in the player. We also need to create a camera so that we can control what is currently being shown. So let's add a new node, hit Ctrl A, search for camera 2D, hit create. And now if we press F, we can see that we have this huge camera viewport. This is definitely currently too large, so
That's pretty big.
on our camera, I'm going to set the zoom here to 4x4 and simply click and drag our camera to be on top of the player. And now we can try playing our game. And there you go. We now have a player that is playing an idle animation.
That's pretty cool.
And nothing else is happening. That's because we need to add a script that allows us to move around. So let's close our game, go into our player scene, and with our player node selected, let's press this Add Script button. Here we can choose a template. Of course, we're going to do some programming in this video, but writing player movement can become a bit overwhelming. So for now, we'll use the basic movement template.
Yeah, character movement and character feel is pretty tough, especially in a 2D thing. It'd be interesting how to figure that out. How to do it well, I suppose.
Provided by Godot. Then later, we'll go in and modify it to play different animations and rebind input to the keys we'd like to use. As for the path here, I'm going to make sure that we put this inside of our scripts folder, and let's just name it player. Let's hit create, and as you can see, this creates a script that will move around our character. I know that this might look really confusing at first, but don't worry, we'll have a look at what all this means later. For now, let's just try playing. And our player immediately falls off the screen. That's because we need to give him a collider to stand on.
Need fives.
Now
Bye-bye.
our player has a collider, but it doesn't have anything to collide with.
Okay,
so
so
in our game,
what can we do?
back
We're going to create just a floor, I suppose?
Top here, this is where we can change from script view to 2D. Let's add a new node. So let's hit the plus sign. Let's add a static body 2D, and this is another type of physics body. It's the one we use for
It's just
things
gonna be
that
floor.
don't need to move. That's why it's called static. So it's perfect for creating some ground. Let's hit create. And again, this is going to give us this warning here that it needs a shape. So let's add a collision shape. So I'm going to hit Ctrl A, search for collision shape. And for the shape here, we're going to create a
Ctrl
new
A.
world boundary shape. The world boundary is a type of collider that is perfect for stuff like, well, world boundaries, because it's going to extend infinitely on the horizontal axis here. So as you can see, it's currently pointing up. We could also point it to the side here, and now it's going to extend infinitely on the vertical. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to undo that. Instead, I'm going to select the entire static body here. I'm going to change to the move tool by pressing this icon here or simply W on the keyboard. And I'm going to move it down under our character. Then I'm going to go back to our select tool, which is here, or simply press Q. And while our collider doesn't have any graphics, it's going to be invisible, we can now play. And there we go. Our player now gently lands on the collider, and we can move around using the arrow keys and jump with this.
What did I do wrong? So collision shape 2D.
Go back and change to the move shape. So let's add a collision shape. So I'm going to hit Ctrl A, search for collision shape. And for the shape here, we're going to create a new world boundary shape.
So world boundary shape 2D.
Type of collider that is perfect for stuff like, well, world boundaries, because it's going to extend infinitely on the horizontal axis here. So as you can see, it's currently pointing up. We could also point it to the side here, and now it's going to extend infinitely on the vertical. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to undo that. Instead, I'm going to select the entire static body here. I'm going to change to the move tool by pressing this icon here or simply W on the keyboard. And I'm going to move it down under our character. Then I'm going to go back to our select tool, which is here, or simply press Q. And while our collider doesn't have any graphics, it's going to be invisible.
Okay.
We can now play, and there we go. Our player.
So it doesn't seem to work. What? Okay. Before I call it a night, I want to fix this.
now gently graphic, which is here, or simply press Q. And while our collider doesn't have any graph,
because yeah, this doesn't work. Womp womp. Why? We have the static body 2D. Collisions there. Scale is there. One-way collision.
it's going to be and infinitely on the vertical. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to undo that. Instead, I'm going to select the entire static body here. I'm going to change to the Move tool by pressing this icon.
That's so weird that that doesn't work.
W on the keyboard. And I'm going to move it down under our character. Then I'm going to go back to our Select tool, which is here, or simply press Q. And while our collider doesn't have any graphics, it's going to be invisible, we can now play. And there we go. Our player now gently lands on the collider, and we can move around using the arrow keys and jump with the spacebar. Now, our player is currently a bit too fast, and I think his jump is a bit too high, so let's modify our script to change that. Let's close our game.
How am I stuck here? That's frustrating.
And there you go. This is our get button. Here we can move the date markers off the screen. But it doesn't have here. This is where we can change from script view to static body 2D.
So static body 2D.
Physics body. It's the one we use for things that don't need to move. That's why it's called static. So it's perfect for creating some ground. Let's say create. And again, this is going to give us this warning here that it needs a shape. So let's add a collision shape. So I'm going to hit Control A. Search for collision shape, and for the shape here we're going to create a new world boundary shape. The world boundary is a type of collider that is perfect for stuff like, well, world boundaries, because it's going to extend.
Does anybody have this problem in the thing? So there's no way Unity will push up so bad that it got brackets to come back. Well, do those have a problem with the camera jittering the player when play? So someone mentioned, anyone who thinks the character isn't following, no, that's fine. Yeah, no information. No one else is seemingly having this problem.
Infinitely on the horizontal axis here. So as you can see, it's currently pointing up. We could also point it to the side here, and now it's going to extend infinitely on the vertical. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to undo that. Instead, I'm going to select the entire static body here. I'm going to change to the Move tool by pressing this icon here, or simply W on the keyboard. And I'm going to move it down under our character. Then I'm going to go back to our Select tool, which is here, or simply press Q. And while our collider doesn't have any graphics, it's going to be invisible, we can now play. And there we go. Our player now gently lands on the collider, and we can move around using the arrow keys and jump with the spacebar.
So what is wrong? That's so frustrating. Why is my guy just falling through the world?
Our player is currently a bit too fast, and I think he's... And there we go. It doesn't have any graphics. It's just by...
I'm gonna hear this guy say the word graphics for like an hour. All right. Let's start over. So right click. Static body 2D.
Here, and now it's going to extend world bound and add. That's why then this is going to give us this warning.
So let's try this again.
A shape. So let's add a collision shape. So I'm going to hit Control A. search for collision shape. And for the shape here, we're going to create a new world boundary shape. The world boundary is a type of collider that is perfect for stuff like, well, world boundaries, because it's going to extend infinitely on the horizontal axis here. So as you can see, it's currently pointing up. We could also point it to the side here, and now it's going to extend infinitely
No!
on the vertical. I'm going to hit Ctrl Z to undo that. Instead, I'm going to select the
if I drop
entire
him
body
lower.
here. I'm going to change to the move tool by pressing this icon here, or simply W on the keyboard. And I'm going to move it down under our character. Then I'm going to go back to our select tool, which is here.
So if I change the radius, does that make a difference?
While our collider doesn't have any graphics, it's going to be invisible. We can now play. And there we go. Our player now gently lands on the collider, and we can move around using the arrow keys and jump with the spacebar.
Oh.
Now our player is
set to disabled? Am I stupid? So I set this disabled as on. So now it should work. Okay. Okay, so human error, of course. Devon error, as they say.
I think his jump is a bit too high, so let's modify our script to change that.
Okay, so we're going to modify now the...
And at the top here, there are two constants that we can modify. Our speed, as well as our jump velocity. So
so I think that's going to be a good point in which to stop. We'll continue that next time. But yeah, it's good that we found even more resources. So we have this Senva course. Hopefully will be super useful. So it has a bunch of lessons, quizzes and stuff. I think that would be super useful. So maybe we'll do that on Saturday. We'll definitely stream again. I'm hopefully on Thursday. I got plans for maybe Friday night if I'm feeling it. Maybe Saturday as well if I'm feeling it. Sunday most likely not. But we'll definitely have to do some stream for Unreal. This week I want to see if I can finish up that health component that we were running the other day, making sure we can get this view model stuff working in multiplayer. So we have all this code set up in our view model health component, and then we'll kind of continue with brackies with this tutorial. It should be super useful. And then after these tutorials, then we'll have, there's also this pirate software game jam happening next month that I'd like to try to participate in if I can. I want to maybe shadow participate where I'm not actually going to enter, but if I can learn the theme and just kind of try to make something, only because I'll be on vacations in August and I'll be missing a bit of it. So yeah, that's going to be the plan. So thank you everybody for watching. If there is anyone watching and isn't already following me here on Twitch, a follow would be much appreciated. Hope you enjoyed the content. Hopefully you enjoyed learning with me. Have a good night, and I'll see you very soon.